Let the minutes reflect that in compliance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 of the Public Meetings Act, the notice of this meeting has been provided by notifying the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger, placing a notice on the bulletin board and filing same with the Borough Clerk on January 1, 2017.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Bentley,
No.
okay. We have two brief matters for workshop. One is the dog waste stations. We talked about it before. Our clerk has been able to certify a couple of facts. Number one, that there is a company that has been used by the various municipalities, and it's on the state-approved contractors list that provides these types of dog waste stations. They are notified according to state regulations as to what they are. They provide the bags, and then we have the trash cans, and they're the commonly accepted ones in New Jersey. They come in green or black. Copies of this thing. Okay, but it's sort of like an unobtrusive type of station. It's not very big, and the thought was to place them in our parks initially, and where else? Parks and, well, Borough Hall, not places where people, and Mohawk Pond and the athletic field, borough properties for the time being. And the initial thought was that we were going to have advertisements to pay for them. Our investigation has revealed that this particular type of program is recommended and is part of the Clean Communities Funding Program. We do have about $23,000 in Clean Community funds available for it, and the cost of each one of these is about $119. And I'm not suggesting we spend $23,000 for this, but if we can at least try out the program, we can. And I think it'll go a long way, and then we can probably do other avenues of relief in terms of advertising if needed. But initially we thought we could use the dog and cat licensing fees. There is a interdiction by the Division of Local Government Service to use those fees for this type of program. But this type of program comes under the specific headline of the Clean Communities Act, and that's what the funding is for. So I think it's a great idea. These are extraordinarily non-intrusive, and it's called a mini dog waste station. One pull bag system. Hopefully it won't result in one pull or an exit. We don't know. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so we'll move forward, and then Pam could go forward and get, and again, this is part of the program. We didn't know that at the time, so. Okay, next. And then we'll figure out the locations in conjunction with Charlie as well as Cliff and the head of DPW in terms of, because they control sites. Okay? The next item on the discussion for workshop is policies and procedures. Stanley, go into that, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As per my memorandum, October 6th, Mayor and Council, we had a meeting with the Personnel and Finance Committee last Wednesday. We discussed the best practices checklist that was submitted or distributed to communities that we have to answer each year about best practices in government. Each year the questions change. This year the questions went from 35 to 25, and these questions are weighted, and depending on how you answer these questions, you get a certain score, and then they establish a score. Like if you don't answer some of the questions correctly or to their satisfaction, they withhold state aid. So a couple of questions, we pretty much are in compliance, but there are a couple of questions that were raised which require changes to our personnel policies and procedures. In particular, in two, though there are three recommendations. One is there's some additional language we had to add to our vehicle policy to make sure that we're in compliance with IRS rules for those that use them for, that are not exempt or what we call qualified emergency vehicles. Those other vehicles other than those, if you use, if the employees, there's only I think one or two that use them to commute to and from work, that we have to make sure that their proper forms are filled out, that they receive that a W-2 or part of their expense record from, and it's reported to the IRS as a benefit. So we have to add that language. That's a simple fix. And I gave you draft language in my memorandum. The second amendment is to subsection G with health insurance. This was not in the best practices, but in discussing with the Finance Committee, our biggest expense is health insurance, especially it also becomes very costly with retiree health insurance. So it was discussed with the committee about eliminating health insurance for retirees for new hires going forward. It wouldn't affect the existing employees, and it certainly wouldn't affect contractual agreements that we have in place. But for new hires, other than those contractual employees, we would hire them with the understanding that we'll provide health insurance while you're employed, but not during retirement. Right now, as the way it works is most of the employees are covered by worker and spouse coverage, and the police department has worker, spouse, and children in retirement. So this would start and save the borough money in the future, and also going forward is sort of addresses the concerns with the ongoing expenses to the taxpayers with retiree health benefits. And then the third recommendation was in the best policies questionnaire is retirement policy concerning to sick time buyout. We've already passed an ordinance doing away with this for appointees, but we wanted to put the language in the policies, amendment policies, to say that there would be no sick time accumulation and buyout for new hires. So that's the third amendment. And so what we'll do is incorporate these into our existing policy procedure manual and improve it with these modifications. And we have to do that by ordinance, and tonight's the first, the introduction of the ordinance.
So does this affect all employees or just the non-union employees?
This would affect all employees other than the contractual agreements that we have. So all appointed, all new hires as of first year. And then we can negotiate with the unions with regard to these going forward.
Any other questions on that? So let's move ahead. Approval of the minutes for September 27th, motion. So moved. Second. All in favor? There are no appointments this evening. Report of mayor and council meeting members. Let's keep it brief. Linda?
We began borough administrator interviews last week. The first couple went extremely well, and we'll continue. I think next week we're doing the 2 interviews. So that process is underway, and so far so good. Thanks.
Thank you. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. The code committee met last week. We discussed quite a different number of issues. We have some new proposals that will be coming to the council for consideration in the next couple of weeks, next couple of meetings. The Environmental Commission held a bike and pedestrian safety meeting last night right here in the Borough Hall. It was very well attended. It was a great meeting with a lot of great discourse. I want to thank our panel members, Joe Tor, who's a Monmouth County engineer, Matt Birdall, who's a representative from the Red Bank, our borough engineer from CME, Cliff Keene from DPU, Chief McConnell, and Sergeant Ehrenreich from the Red Bank Police Department. Kate Trigiano is the Vice President of the Environmental Commission. She was also on the panel, and it was moderated by Frank Brado, the chair of the EC. Like I said, it was a great event. We had a lot of people interested, a lot of different issues were addressed from both the bike and pedestrian angles, some things we can hopefully do better in town. And So we just want to invite you to leave. Will be a series of meetings that we will try to focus on some different issues moving forward. I also want to point out that the St. Anthony's free bike light giveaway is coming up. I believe that's the 23rd. I forgot. I apologize, I don't know the date. But it's posted on social media. You can find that. You do have to bring your bike there to get that, but they will give you a bike light and install it for free. I also wanted to say I was able to attend the Art Show over the weekend on Saturday, and it was great to see all the kids' artwork from around our schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for being here, everybody. We have a parking committee meeting scheduled for tomorrow. So we look forward to that. We have a big agenda. It won't just be based on the parking meeting we had. It'll be a full committee meeting, as we always talk about, whether it's the expansion of MPay, anything we can do with it, discussing moving permits, as the former Councilwoman Burton has mentioned. So we're always looking at ways that we can improve short-term goals as well as long-term goals. So we look forward to a productive meeting as always tomorrow. And really briefly, there was some confusion a couple weeks ago with, maybe last week, with the fire chief not letting the governing body know in advance. But our very own Stanley Sickles was awarded by the Monmouth County Fire Academy. It was a very prestigious award, and I just want to read a quick little sort of it. Stanley Sickles was awarded an administrative award for his decades of service to Red Bank and the state. Stanley has served as fire marshal for the borough of Red Bank since June 1st, 1979. During his tenure, the number of severity of fires in the community have greatly reduced due to his coordination and direction of inspection efforts while serving as fire marshal, construction official, borough administrator, and director of code enforcement. Stanley also served on the course development committee for the New Jersey State Police Hazardous Materials Training Program. He currently serves as a member of the New Jersey State Fire Safety Commission and has taken the lead in advocating for legislation to address large loss fires and fire inspecting licensing and so much more. There's a lot more in that award. Trying to keep it condensed, but outside of what Stanley's done for the state, yes. But outside of what Stanley's done, that award, there's probably nobody more committed and who loves the Red Bank Fire Department more than Stanley. So thank you for all your decades of service to the Red Bank Fire Department, to the Hook and Ladder, and to the community as a whole. And it was great to be a part of. And unfortunately, not everyone got to know, but it was I was there on behalf of Red Bank, and we're very proud of you. We're very lucky to have you.
Makes it seem like he's retiring from the fire department. But he's still a volunteer. Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to report on the Red Bank Borough Education Foundation's fundraiser last Friday night, the casino night over at the Elks on West Front. It was really successful. We were all there, and I wanted to thank all the businesses and individuals who donated prizes and food, and it was, I don't know what the final number is, how much we raised, but I think we did really well. So I just wanted to thank everyone and everyone on council for being there. It was, as usual, a good time. I also have a story to relate about the library, which is Elizabeth McDermott told me about it. Several weeks ago, in Riverside.
The mic went off.
I know. Thank you. Several weeks ago, in Riverside Gardens Park, we have what's called a story walk. The library puts up children's books. They're on posts, and they are they're around the perimeter of the park. And several weeks ago, the book was that was being displayed was Miss Mary Mack by Nadine Westcott. And just by chance, Miss Westcott, who's from Fairhaven and was attending her high school reunion, was walking in the park, saw that her book was being displayed, went over to the library, said that she used to go to the library all the time. She was so thrilled that she sent a huge package of books to the library, children's books. And Sarah Williams, who works in the children's room, as well as Dawn Ladinsky, who is the youth librarian, they use Ms. Westcott's books for their programs. So, I just think that's a really nice little story. And Elizabeth and board members Steve Hecht and Jim White attended the library leadership breakfast. I guess it was last Friday. Congressman Plum spoke. And Elizabeth submitted a story on the Story Walk to they had a pamphlet. And it turned out that Red Bank is the only library that does that kind of thing. So I think it's really great. It brings community together, and people, all kinds of people have been involved who are interested in it. People who go to the parks for jazz nights or exercise or the movies, lunch, people who are eating their lunch there, strollers. It's not just kids and families, but a lot of people who do use the park. So I thought that was a really nice story. And on Friday, this Friday, October 13th, there's going to be a Halloween movie, and the library is going to do a story walk to fit in with the theme, Good Night Goon. So don't miss it. It should be really good. Charlie, what is the name of the film? Is that the name of the film too?
Hotel Transylvania.
What is it? Oh, okay. All right, it's a different one, but the theme fits in. And then just briefly on the IT department, because I haven't reported on it in a while, our committee will be meeting at the end of the month, hopefully, to discuss the budget. But also they have, Ryan, our IT director, has been working on an inventory of all the borough's IT-related assets to obtain a better idea of what the borough has in place, how old it is, what it's being used for, who's using it, and when it may potentially need to be replaced. He's always working with vendors to discuss upcoming projects, such as replacing switches, implementing cameras, and other MCIA-related projects. He's reviewing how the borough prints and what can be done to reduce waste, both from a working standpoint as well as a supply waste standpoint. So Matt's very busy, doing a good job, and we will be meeting and figuring out what we have to do with the budget. And that is it. Thanks.
Thank you. Ed?
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
We wanted to thank you for meeting with us at Historic Preservation last week to discuss additions to the inventory and firming up the guidelines for the historic district. The HPC is working with Glenn Carter on guidelines to be published by the Planning and Zoning Office. And from the Department of Public Utilities, the road program has begun. Prospect Avenue and Bank Street are both deep preliminary concrete work being done before resurfacing commences. Lake Banner Drive and Gold Street will begin within the next 2 weeks or so. And I wanted to give a shout out to Eric and Charlie for the Children's Art Show in the park last weekend. Aspiring artists displayed their work, so they were enjoyed by the many visitors to the park while we were down there. And I just wanted to echo Kathy's thanks to everybody who came out in support of the RPBDF Casino night. It was good to see so many of our colleagues come out and support our efforts on behalf of the Red Bank students. Thank you.
Thank you. Here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as Councilman Taylor and Zippert said, I wanted to thank everybody who participated in the art show this past weekend at Riverside Gardens. There was more than 250 projects that were submitted, and they were judged this Saturday. Thanks to the staff of all 6 schools, the primary school, middle school, charter school, RBR, RBC, and St. James, who all helped this event go out smoothly. I just wanted to say that we're doing another art show in the spring and include a category for all adult artists. The parade is going to take place on the 22nd. Lineup will be at 1 and it starts at 2. The Halloween egg hunt is Friday, October 27th at 7 p.m. at Count Basie Fields. And just a quick update on the Marine Park project. We received several responses to our RFQ. We're going through them thoroughly, and then we're going to be meeting with all the respondees later this month to discuss this and hopefully come out with someone to perform this project. Through Parks and Rec, we started up a Falcon program for special needs kids in our schools. This is going to start with an art class in November for after-school project for these kids. I'm really excited, and Charlie's doing a great job with that. with regard to the West Side Parks, we're going to schedule a middle November meeting. We're going to have experts here, the Parks and Rec Committee we're going to have here. We're going to discuss any issues and concerns with regard to the West Side Parks and any capping and any type of issues or concerns that you have. And it will be here. We haven't set a date yet, but it's going to be here, and so everybody can attend. And last but not least, we're going to start an impervious surface study with, we're partnered with Rutgers to do a impervious surface study in town. Chris O'Rourke of Rutgers did this in Fairhaven and Tin Falls, and they'll assess our town. They'll come up with different projects in our town where we can either provide pervious surfaces or different types of rain gardens and so forth in order to limit our effect on the Navicine. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Mr. Mayor, just one quick minute, I'm sorry. Hearing the other reports reminded me of two things. And thank you, Dr. Roman just confirmed the St. Anthony's Bike Light is the 23rd from 5 to 7 at St. Anthony's on Herbert Street, St. Anthony's Parish here in town. The other information that comes out of RBVEF, the casino night, is there was an announcement that the Red Bank Business Alliance is going to donate half of all their ticket sales to their Holiday Flavor Festival, I believe it's being called, which is November 13th. So please buy a ticket to that. You will be also helping the foundation with that effort as well.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give a shout out with regard to the Story Walk to Cliff and to the DPW department, because they were very helpful in deciding where everything should be installed and installed it too. So thank you very much. I forgot to give you a shout out before. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to communications petitions for a block party by South Street residents for October 29th. And request to close South Street from Brown Place and Bergen Place reported by motion. So moved. Second. All in favor? There's a request from Riverview Medical Center to purchase the maximum number of parking permits for spaces in Marine Park from October 1st through March 31st for their parking needs. I would recommend that that be tabled, referred to the parking committee for future analysis and report. We don't have an assessment. I'm concerned that there are 78 spaces in the park, and that park is being used. It's the people's park. So let's refer it to the parking committee to see how it should be responded to, because I don't think we should move on it tonight without the parking committee reviewing.
I'd also ask that Charlie be involved in that.
Of course, yeah.
Marine Park is part of the
Yeah.
plan.
What I'm saying is it hasn't even gotten to parking committee yet, and my concern is it's a park, and yeah, we could probably help them, but not the number that they're looking for, or possibly looking for. Okay? So, motion to table?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Any members of the public have any comments on any ordinances or resolutions that are on the agenda this evening, Mr. Forrest?
Ben Forrest, 16 Locust Avenue. Actually, the third one that you were talking about, I want to thank you for that action, Mayor. One of the ongoing things about our whole parking discussion is I'm hoping the parking committee has some blueprint or some plan that in conjunction with whatever happens or not happens on White Street, because I think we need to have some sort of guidance as to exactly as you indicated, Mayor, what are we going to do with those 78 spots? Like, one of the ongoing issues is unresolved. Is students, for example, over, where do we park students? Where do we park employees that work in the town? And all these things need to be thought out. And, how expensive will it be to park if we build a deck or not build a deck? And I think we really kind of need a comprehensive assessment of all these resources so that when these sort of things come to us, we can say, well, this is how we're managing it. And of course, Riverview should be at that table, because they are a big, important interest in town. But, we can't let everything get swallowed up, so that we look at the whole picture so that we have our vibrant downtown, enough parking, hopefully, for the town Basie to do well. A system so that if we do build a lot of some sort, that it works. I'll say a little more about parking later, based on the hearing, but that's all it has to do with what you were just saying. I think that was appropriate action, and thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
And Council.
Anybody else on any resolutions? Gary?
Gary Carpenter, 55 North Bridge Avenue. I just wanted to comment on Councilman Whalen's reading of the accolade for Stanley Sickles as fire marshal. I have a personal experience working with Stanley.
Let's just get through the agenda. This is just for the
Oh,
agenda.
I thought you
Yeah.
could just, I thought it was a comment on the.
Yeah, I
what you
didn't know what he was going to talk about, but let's just save it for a few minutes. We get through it, we're
Save it for
going to
when?
get here.
For when?
Hmm?
Save it for when, did you say?
We're going to get to it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought it was anything you had covered so far.
Resolutions, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else on resolutions or ordinances?
Michael Clancy, 45 Redwood Street.
Use the microphone. It's over there.
Michael Clancy.
Push the button, Mike.
Yeah, underneath. Hold in.
Michael Clancy, 45 Worthley Street. Resolution 17-232, determine the need for public housing in the borough of Red Bank. I kind of just wanted to clarify this because when I read through the actual resolution, it's just about the revitalization project, not an actual need for housing. Since being a commissioner on the Housing Authority, I just wanted to clarify what that resolution's for.
Now I say requirement for the funding for that rehabilitation project.
Yeah, and it's purely limited, frankly, to Evergreen and Montgomery Terrace, which is
Yes.
federal housing project.
And that's all going through RAD, it's not going through the
That's right.
municipality? Okay,
Yes.
okay, well,
But they need a resolution.
they need a resolution, okay, that's all I
there,
got.
and we need it, yeah, and we do.
Okay, I'm in favor of supporting that, okay.
No, no problem. It's a good question, though, but that's what it is. Anybody else? Okay, I'm moving on to ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 2017-35, an ordinance amending and supplementing ordinance in Borough of Red Bank with respect to personnel policies 105-3 for introduction only. Is there a motion to introduce? Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Public hearing will be when?
October 25th at 6:30.
Public hearing will be then. Thank you. If anybody needs a comprehensive but brief brief memorandum as to what that encompasses, it's basically a negotiating change that would be provided in a memorandum which is available and will be provided by the clerk. For ordinances for public hearing and final adoption, ordinance 2017-31, which is the final computation of the currently existing zoning map and the overlay zones that are finally reflected on one map as is provided. This has been discussed at the last council meeting and approved by the planning board to finally comprehensively put all of these zones on one map with the current lineal as well as legal definitions. Any members of the public wish to be heard on the map? If not, motion closed. Second. All in favor? Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 2017-31 regarding the publication as well as adoption of the new zoning map?
So moved.
Second. Second. Roll call.
Councilman Yangstrom?
Yes.
Councilman Ziprich?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horgan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schwabenbauer?
Yes.
Councilman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted, resolutions 17-31, a resolution of approval to submit a grant application and execute an agreement with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the Red Bank Road Program project for White Street. This is for the rehabilitation of the White Street project. Motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 17-232, determining the need for public housing in the Borough of Red Bank, limited to the public housing, which are federal projects that we have in Red Bank. Motion? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 17-233, a resolution, it says requisition, but it should be requesting to New Jersey DOT to evaluate the need for a traffic light at the intersection of State Highway 35, Riverside Avenue, and Bodman Place. I do have an amendment to that resolution, which I think clarifies, because we had previously adopted a similar resolution. And of course, DOT is still studying the place, and has been studying it for 10 days, and 10 years, I should say. And they keep on sending more and more engineers to study, and we still don't get a response. So classic state action, but I'd like to add, before the last whereas, well, you have it here. Before the last whereas, I mean, it's in between the whereas. It says, whereas the installation of a traffic signal at Bodman Place and Highway 35 has the support and the recommendation of the Traffic Safety Division of the Borough's Police Department. And I want to add the following. Whereas the council is of the long-standing opinion, as expressed to NJDOT for the past decade, that the traffic control device is essential, not just for the safety of the motoring public and pedestrians, but for the successful implementation of the area in need of rehabilitation, as has been promulgated by the borough, which is a major artery of the borough Red Bank, and approved by the planning board after public hearings. And then because it should stress that the area in need of rehabilitation without this traffic control device, because it's changed circumstances for the past 10 years on Riverside Avenue, is going to be problematic, because it's problematic now, and it's essential for the economic revitalization and competitiveness of Red Bank. Anybody have a problem with that amendment?
Great, great idea, Mayor. Definitely agree.
Oh, where is it going? I'm sorry, Pat.
Well, it's what we've been talking with DOT for, as I said, a long time. And it would be at the intersection, it's going to be a reconfigured intersection of Bodman Place and Riverside Avenue. Yeah, so that's the problem here, because cars can't come up. Yeah. Right, so in second to the last whereas, yeah. Any other changes to it or amendments? Okay. Subject to that amendment, is there a motion? So moved. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Resolution 17-234, resolution approving government strategy group. Okay, it's actually a resolution awarding a professional services contract to Government Strategy Group for management, enhancement, review services pursuant to the non-fair and open process established by NJSA 19:44A20.4 to be awarded to the Government Strategy Group, which is a management, enhancement, and review services for a period of not to exceed 90 days to review the management procedures, protocol, administration, staffing, and everything else concerning the operation of the Borough of Red Bank as we are moving forward in the competitive modern age. Motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Proclamations, I believe we only have one. No additional resolutions. Is that correct? Yes, no. Whereas the Borough of Red Bank is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our community, and whereas the U.S. Fire Department has responded to 365,000 home fires in 2015, reported to the National Fire Protection Association, and U.S. home fires resulted in 2,560 civilian deaths in 2015, representing the majority of all U.S. fire deaths. And whereas newer homes are built with lightweight materials that burn faster than older homes, constructions, and many of today's products and furniture produce toxic gases and smoke when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within moments. And whereas those conditions contribute to a much smaller window of time for people to escape a home fire safely, with people having as little as 1 to 2 minutes to escape from the time that the smoke alarm sounds. And whereas a home fire escape plan provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation, should include 2 exits from every home from every room in the home, a path to the outside from each exit, smoke alarms at all required locations, a meeting place outside everyone everyone in the home will meet upon exiting, and whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all members of the household, and practicing a home fire escape plan twice a year ensures that everyone in the household knows what to do in a real fire situation, whereas Red Bank's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, and whereas Red Bank's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their fire safety, especially in their homes, and whereas the 2017 Fire Prevention Week theme, Every Second Counts, plan 2 ways out effectively serves to educate the public about the vital importance of developing a home fire escape plan with all members of the household and practicing it twice a year. Now, therefore, I was called Madam Clerk, Red Bank to hear on October 8th through 14th, 2017 is Fire Prevention Week throughout the borough. This week commemorates the Great Fire, Chicago Fire, the tragic 1871 conflagration killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 people homeless, destroyed more than 17,400 structures, and buried more than 2,000 acres, by which everyone can develop a home fire escape plan with all members of the household who practice it twice a year, participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of the Borough of Red Bank's Fire and Emergency Services during Fire Prevention Week 2017. 2 thoughts. I think that I know who drafted that proclamation. And number 2, it's appropriate, I think, for us to remember, because only last night and this morning there were an additional 15, I believe, to 17 casualties as a result of the California fires. And to remember that those are also home fires, and there are home fires also for natural creatures who we don't know how many hundreds or thousands of them passed away. But also to mind that, our developmental patterns and some of our wild areas have to be sensitive to global warming, and we as a nation have to start waking up, because it's going to be happening on a greater frequency. Any other proclamations? Payment of vouchers. Be it resolved by the Mayor and Council that the bills on the attached check register be paid, totaling $1,452,927.17. Motion. Second. All in favor? Any old business? New business.
Real quick on old business.
Yes.
As a result of the Mike pedestrian meeting, I just want to renew my call for a crosswalk on the westbound side of the railroad tracks on Chestnut, and also to restripe the eastbound side. It's faded pretty well, and there's all the commuters come off the southbound train and walk across that intersection, and there's no protection for them. So it's just more of a simple fix we can do.
That's probably covered in the Safe Streets grant. So, and I'm sure we have some monies left in that. Speaking of old business, and that was triggered by the proclamation on fire prevention, I see some members of the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee in the audience, but it came to mind that some very progressive towns in northern New Jersey, through their fire prevention funds, which we have equipped their fire departments, volunteer fire departments, with pet masks. At least one pet mask per company per truck. And that has been very helpful, and they are made available, and some manufacturers may even make it available to us for free. But they're not expensive, but it is modern stuff that is being used in our urban fire departments. And if you go to Jersey City and Hoboken, a lot of those trucks were equipped with pet smoke respirators.
Yes, I think we have it.
We have them?
Yeah, we have them since.
Why doesn't anybody advertise this stuff if you have it?
We did in 15.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
Well, toot your own horn if you have it. You probably didn't have it. So we have it.
Yes.
They don't use it.
Yes.
Okay.
That I can't speak to.
All right, so we don't need that. Audience. Gary. Yeah, now. I feel bad, I shut you up before.
I just wanted to comment, sometimes when somebody receives an award.
Gary, use the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I just wanted to comment on Councilman Whalen's reading of the information about Mr. Sickles and his fire marshal. Sometimes we hear this and we think it just seems so abstract, but personal experience, 11 years ago, I was just in the process of finishing an office building in Red Bank, and one of the last things you do is finish your hardwood floors. And I had a contractor come in and polyurethane, hardwood floors in the whole building. For some reason I wasn't there, they had a key, they left. The next morning I came to the building and the alarms weren't activated yet, but the fire suppression system was there. And the building had had a fire, was full of water, smoke. I called the fire department and Mr. Sickles came over with the fire department and everybody else, but they left because the fire was out. And Stan said, well, what happened? I said, well, I had the floors redone. I don't know what happened, Stan. He said, well, he looked around and he said, you know, I think I do. I think they put the oily rags in that plastic garbage can in the building. He had spontaneous combustion. Just about that time, the contractor shows up to put the second coat on the floor. So they came in, and Stan says, you know, we had a fire, and these guys are, you know, all shook up. And he said, did you guys throw the rags in that plastic garbage can? He said, yeah, we did. I told them not to do it, but one of the other guys said, go ahead and do it. So Stan said, well, you have the material still? They still had the material, the polyurethane, the truck. They brought it in, and right on it says not to be discarded in a closed container. So they left. Stan wrote his report. I called the insurance company that represented the contractor. They said, well, we deny any responsibility. I said, well, maybe you'll change your tune when you see the fire marshal's report. Anyway, Stan's report, I got complete cooperation from the carrier. I didn't have to go through my insurance. The $75,000 in damages they paid entirely. And it was all because of the professionalism of Stanley Sickles.
It's going to continue all night, Stan.
I don't know if that's one or not.
Hi, Jimmy.
Good. Jimmy Dark 48 was something that. Remember that you had a chance to check out what menu I had mentioned last time
I'm sorry?
about the street, you know, the streets being swept and clean?
I did, yeah.
And you know, man, the reason I keep saying this sometimes, it shouldn't take long and long, and you shouldn't have to depend on Mother Nature to clean up the streets. And I said, it's really embarrassing. You don't have to wear glasses.
And I did get some information as to why the trucks went around the area. And hopefully, as I suggested at the last council meeting, for some of the streets that are problematic in terms of vehicles being parked there, we could adopt, I strongly recommend, and I have recommended in the past the council adopt an ordinance that on certain days the sweeper is going to go down some of those streets that are problematic, and regulations be adopted precluding parking on certain sides of the street when it goes down. That solves the problem, but I have been told that the reason why there were gaps in that street, and I believe it because I also drove down and saw the same thing, that cars were parked.
Yeah, because I figured, you know, this would, you know, little cosmetic thing. It's not a big cosmetic thing, but I said, you know, because this year after year, the same thing over and
Well,
over.
like I said, I have a solution for it, and if the council wants to go along with it, we can introduce it as early as, you know, the next council meeting and designate which streets we're going to start implementing it on, because it's not just the streets that you mentioned, there are other streets.
Yeah, but I said,
On the
you
east
know,
side and the west
you
side
shouldn't
of
have
town,
to,
especially off of Broad Street, the vehicles are parked, and the street sweeper can't really get to the curb, and so it becomes very untidy. And that's not because they're not trying to sweep, they are trying to sweep. DPW is trying to do its work. So maybe the council can help the DPW in doing its work by adopting the regulations that includes parking, say whenever it is, on a Wednesday morning, the third Wednesday of the month, or the fourth Thursday of the month, no parking this side of the street. Every other major town in North Jersey has those, and it works.
Yeah, that's, you know, you go,
It's good for them.
not to cut you off, but I'm saying, you know, you go to different places, different towns, you see, you know, the neatness of things. And, you know, something done right away, you know, don't wait. I keep coming here with the same thing all the time, and then they say, you know, I had to laugh sometimes, smile and say, well, you know, I said, maybe one day this will be taken care of.
Yeah, I think, again, the DPW director is here this evening. I can tell you he's very thorough in what he does, and he listens, not just to the public comments, but also acts on it. And he and I did talk about it, and we met. I'm going to get a list of some streets that are problematic. I know there's probably some of the streets, the same streets that are problematic even in wintertime and snow. And we'll come up with a list and try to adopt an ordinance on when the street sweeper has to go through those streets, so cars can't park on that side of the street.
But, you know, the reason
Mayor, we'll talk about this tomorrow in the committee. Thanks for bringing this up.
but the reason I always come to you when things should just be done right away, not 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. You know, you look at some things, it's just, you know, common courtesy, you know. I might be the only one to ask, but I just, you know, you look, you know, and say, well, I don't know. But I'd say when I come back out, just mention to the mayor, see what's going on, because you just gave me a paper that says something in the works now, you know.
Yeah, no, and you did ask me, actually, at the last council meeting, after the meeting, to call a certain individual. And by the way, that individual and I played telephone tag for about 4 times.
But that, I want to tell you, you did your part. Thanks a lot. I'll appreciate it, because also I told them, when your phone rings and you see this Mayor Leonard, you should have picked up that.
I thought that's what's going on.
Right, and I told them that, I know they talked to me, and I said, you know what? Now you had to come down here and talk to them. That's, I don't want to.
I'll be happy to keep on calling.
But I told them, I said, you try to make things, you made it easy for them. I said, you just pick the phone up, call them back. Make it,
If I'm around, I'll pick up the phone.
But, you know, thanks for the other information. I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, it's a fix, and again, I didn't want you to think that some streets are deliberately being ignored. They are not. And the guys, and I would like to say the guys and gals in DPW, but the guys on the truck are met so far. They do their work, they try to do their work, but sometimes they're prevented by some of our public, and we have to help those guys do a better job.
Okay.
But that's for this council to do, and again, we need a list of streets, and it's not rocket science stuff.
Yeah, because you know, I was getting ready to say, jokingly, I was going to say, well, I tell you what, I'll let Mayor Bennett do the, he'll drive the trucks and stuff, everything can get done right away. But thanks, my baby, I appreciate it.
No problem. Anybody else? Let Mr. Boynton come up, because you already spoke, so we'll get you back up.
P.O. Box 2074, Red Bank. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Miller, I heard something in the back there. I just want to make sure. Crosswalks on Chestnut, I think I heard by the train track. I think you mentioned that.
Councilman Taylor mentioned that, yes.
Well, we've been at a lot of meetings and I brought it up. How come none of these councilmen is fighting for crosswalks on Shrewsbury Avenue?
Actually, I forgot, I left it out of my report. The county engineer did tell us last night at the bike pedestrian meeting that there will be crosswalks installed on Shrewsbury Avenue at River and Catherine by the end of the year.
By the end of the year?
Is what I
Well,
was
they
told
told
last
me
night.
they were going to start this month.
That would be by the end of the year.
Well, I don't see no interior out there, up there. The other thing is, I noticed Zipper said Bank Street and Layton, they started to work. A couple of people's asked me on Bank Street, why they start to work now around election time? They should have been done during the summer. The curbs should have been done. But I understand what's...
The funding came through not too long ago, and the funding was cleared, and they put the contract work, and that's when we started doing the work.
Well, they see what's going on. It's only work starts over here around election time. It's the only time work gets done over here. Then after election, you ain't gonna see nobody doing no work over here. I think that's wrong to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Forrest.
Thank you. Ben Farr, 16 Locust Avenue. I want to thank you for having that hearing, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, for parking, and I think that was, I got a lot out of it personally, and I think it was good for the town. I wanted to, a couple of takeaways from me. I don't know, most of you, I think all of you might have been there, actually. It was interesting hearing very frank comments from the developer, which I appreciated, Mr. Mumford, and a couple of them resonated, I'm sure probably with you as well. One that, 500 parking spots is not really doable in a project over there. I'm paraphrasing what he said. It's
Both
not really-
developers said that, by the way.
What's that?
Both
Yes.
developers said that. and
I mean, that's-
People would hear that.
So, I mean, that's, I mean, that's
The
just
residents have said that too.
yes. So, I mean, that's a very interesting, factoid that we have to weigh in with all of these options that we have. Two, I noticed you also mentioned the parking study. Now, the parking study, which has been often ballyhooed, the 3 parking studies that say that we need this much more parking and that much more parking. And of course, I read it, and actually, I found them a very difficult and confusing read personally, although I was a B student in English in school. So it wasn't that clear to me, and they were very old. And I really think it was a mistake not to already engage some sort of expert or service to really do an assessment here, because I think one of my takeaways is continue to be here as well as that hearing, is that you have residents coming, like myself, who ask reasonable questions, and I think they should be given reasonable answers from a professional parking person who's working for the borough and can say why, say, parking at the train station is not always a viable solution, say, or parking over at the lot over here, I don't remember what the name of it is, a privately owned one by Pizzazzo, the Pizzazzo lot, or, and so forth. And I think a kind of big blueprint plan that includes possibly a project is really what we need, and we need some really competent advice, and it sounds like that's what Mr. Mumford was telling us. At least that's the way I kind of heard it. And this is one of the things that I've been here, and I've said this before, but I'm concerned about sort of the panic thing. The sky is falling from some merchants who are struggling in town. And there may be a variety of reasons for that. The world has changed, maybe the rent's too high, maybe it's Amazon, who knows why. I've struggled at times in my business. But, I don't want a white elephant. I know you all don't either. And what we do here may not be undoable. And I want to make sure that we get it right. And we've really got to bring experts, at least somebody who we evaluate as carefully as our new administrator that we're bringing on, so that we get really sound advice here. And I'm a little worried because living in town, I literally hear conversations, oh, we got to get this done in 60 days before, politics may change things. No, this should not be the driving force here. The driving force should be what makes sense for our town, what do we all live with. I intend to retire here, and I'm sorry some of you do too. So that's the most important thing. And
Let's wrap it up.
yeah, it's a big issue, Mr. Mayor.
It is. You can wrap it up. You're very competent.
Just looking at my notes here to make sure.
You have a lot of notes.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, before, that was on the agenda when I commented before. That was an agenda item. But I'll wrap it up with that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. Anybody else? Okay, we don't have any need for an executive session. So is there a motion to adjourn? Second? Second. All in favor? Thank you.